Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're very excited to have Daniel Eliot here from the National Cybersecurity Alliance. And we're going to get started in just about probably 30 seconds. All right, there's still some people joining in online. And as soon as my computer says 12:15, we're going to get going. And it's 12:15. So thank you again for joining. We're very, very excited to have Daniel Eliot here today. And he is the Director of Education and Strategic Initiatives at the National Cybersecurity Alliance. That's the NCSA. And in this role, he's responsible for NCSA's educational portfolio and helms one of the NCSA's most successful initiatives, Cybersecure My Business, which is the national program designed to help organizations of all sizes learn to be safer and more secure online. The National Cybersecurity Alliance is also the organizer of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is now October of every year. Daniel assembles the federal government, state and local governments, academia, and the private sector to discuss cutting-edge issues and create and implement high-quality, large-scale education and awareness efforts. Daniel is an accomplished speaker and champion when it comes to cybersecurity and regularly speaks at events across the country and collaborates on regional and national cybersecurity initiatives. So with that, I want to turn it over to Daniel Eliot. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And it is, I know the last time I got to speak at a Lunch and Learn, it was snowy and I was in person. So I'm nice and cozy and warm here in Philadelphia right now.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
so I'm good. It's a pleasure being in the company of all of you today. And thanks for joining us. I'm going to organize this talk into a few different sections. So as we talk about managing cyber risks during times of crisis, I'm first going to provide just a brief overview of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Then I'm going to identify some of the themes and tactics that cyber criminals are using to trick and steal from you during times of crisis. Then I'm going to talk about some different ways that you can reduce your vulnerability and hopefully be more vigilant and mindful when it comes to securing your personal data and that of your business. And then I'm going to conclude with some resources that are all free, and we'll wrap up with some Q&A. And so please feel free to submit questions as we go through this session here. Now, the National Cybersecurity Alliance, Anne provided a great overview, so I'm not going to go too much into it. I just want to let you know that you can visit the National Cybersecurity Alliance's website at staysafeonline.org to access all of the free resources that we have available. Everything we do is free and open to the public, and we have particular resources that are specifically designed for small and medium-sized businesses. And so if you fall into that category, I encourage you to check that out. But we also have resources on how to talk to your kids about privacy, best practices for online learning security, bunch of stuff, all free for you to take advantage of. And so I just wanted to direct you to our website right now. Now, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I should say. We are in our 17th year leading this annual recognition or celebration. And it's in partnership with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I know it's a mouthful, but they're affectionately called CISA, and they're a new agency, about 2 years old, broken out of Department of Homeland Security. And they're specifically focused on cybersecurity, of course. And so we, as the National Cybersecurity Alliance, a nonprofit, co-lead Cybersecurity Awareness Month with them each year. And our theme this year, our call to action, if you will, is do your part, be cyber smart, right? And so the theme empowers individuals and organizations to own their role in securing their part of cyberspace. And so we hope that if everyone does their part, that our interconnected world, our always connected world, will be safer and more resilient for everyone. And so if you're a business or an individual who wants to become involved in Cybersecurity Awareness Month, you can become a champion. It is free to become a champion and very fast process. And I know it's I think it's the 22nd of the month today.
Yeah.
Um, but there's still time to spread awareness. We want to equip organizations and people to become evangelists of cybersecurity, to spread awareness to those you care about within your community or sphere of influence. And so this Champions program, you receive a toolkit with graphics and social media, sample social media posts and tip sheets and videos, a bunch of information that you can use to share with your, again, colleagues, customers. You can co-brand them, do what you want with them. We just want to be sure that we're spreading awareness and making it easier for you to do so.
And I just wanted to interject that we love this program at Ekaru. We've been champions now the last couple of years, and the information is so great. And I would encourage folks to look at that link and to go in and find these handouts that you can share with your employees. The broadcast of cybersecurity awareness is so important. It's ongoing. So we love this program. So thank you, Daniel, for that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's we want to try to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to spread awareness. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be just at work. It could be sharing information with your dependents or your family members, whoever it is, your local senior citizen center, whatever it is. But sharing information, the sharing is caring, goes a long way.
Yes.
So let's dig into this content here a bit, managing cyber risks during times of crisis. Organizations and individuals face all sorts of risks. I don't have to tell you that, right? It's just part of life. We have competition, we have natural disasters, we have cyber threats, loss of critical employees. Right now, the city of Philadelphia is tearing up in the street in front of my house. If I were a business, that could be a resiliency topic in its own, because customers wouldn't be able to access my business. What's critical in facing all of these is how we prepare for and respond to these moments of uncertainty. For businesses, how you prepare for and respond to these moments of uncertainty could mean the difference between you staying in business or going out of business. It can mean the difference for your personal life, how you respond to and prepare for times of uncertainty could mean your family's financial welfare for the better or worse. And so that's why I wanted to bring up this topic of resilience and thread it through the entire presentation here today. Now, I feel like this photo sums up 2020 and this topic of discussion perfectly. 2020 has been generous in showcasing the full spectrum of threats that can face not only businesses but individuals, right? Across the globe, all the world's citizens. We see fires ravaging Colorado and California. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting 7 to 11 hurricanes this year, with 3 to 5 of them predicted to be very serious. We've seen social unrest, not only here in the States, but across the globe. And that is manifested in both peaceful protest and violent protest. And both have had an impact on the business community. And I could go on and on and on, right? But of course, one of the other major ones we've seen is the pandemic, changing the way that we not only do business, but the way we live our lives. And there is one consistent threat or type of crisis that threads its way through all of these other ones. And that is the threat of cyber criminals. Cyber criminals prey upon fear. They prey upon confusion. They prey upon generosity, and they prey upon curiosity, right? Their goal is to exploit vulnerabilities, and not only technologies, but exploit vulnerabilities in humans in any way they can to get something out of you to their advantage. And much of the exploitation of humans comes in the form of social engineering that I want to kind of talk about a bit before we get into some of the very specific examples that I've highlighted from 2020. Now, with social engineering in particular, what criminals are doing is they're employing various methods to trick individuals into disclosing sensitive information or confidential information. One of the things they love the most is credentials. They want to trick employees, employers, individuals into handing over credentials because, gosh, it sure is much easier for the criminal if somebody willingly hands over their credentials than it is for them to brute force their way into an organization or for them to guess. And so they're trying to trick you through sending convincing emails or convincing messages to disclose your sensitive information. They want to infect your computers with malicious software. You may have heard the term malware. It's just short for malicious software. And so again, sending convincing emails or text messages, trying to trick you or convince you into clicking that file and downloading that malicious software. Of course, they want to get you to click links to go to an infected site. These often will happen through, there was just an alert that came out, I think yesterday or the other day, about social media ads. They want you to click on this social media ad so that you will go to an infected site and submit your information or make a purchase that then steals your information or downloads malicious software on your computer. And then, of course, they want to trick you to gaining access to physical locations, right? So they might appear at your office and try to convince you that they are the HVAC repair person or that they are your IT vendor, right? They want to trick you to gaining access to your network or your server so that maybe they can plug something in or manipulate your office in some way, steal confidential paperwork. Scam artists are not new. This is an old occupation or hobby, however you want to classify it. But the mechanism is new. The internet, right? This ability, relative to human history, this ability to target individuals at scale is what is so compelling and so effective for criminals right now. Because instead of going and robbing one bank, now they can rob multiple bank accounts, millions of bank accounts at one time with just one phishing campaign. So, and threat actors, Ann and I were just talking about this before the broadcast, threat actors aren't changing their tactics so much, right? Email and sending malicious links in emails or malicious files in emails, that has been consistent for pretty much as long as email has been around. What is consistent also is that criminals are using this mechanism of email or sending a text message or whatever, but they're changing their tactics, or they're not changing their tactics so much as they're changing with the times. So they might theme an email as a COVID-19 email, or they might theme a malicious email as Hurricane Harvey or whatever the most recent hurricane is now. So I'm going to give you a few examples of that here right now, but just to be mindful that anytime a moment of crisis occurs and our emotions are running wild and we're seeking information and we're stressed and we're scared, criminals are going to be there to take advantage of that using social engineering to manipulate the complexities of human nature. So let's look at phishing in particular, because emails are really the way, they're the gift that keeps on giving for cyber criminals, because they know it's effective. So the KnowBe4 in particular, so they issued a Q1 report, and the results found that phishing email attacks related to COVID-19, themed as COVID-19, were up 600% in just Q1 of 2020. A study by CrowdStrike showed that there were more intrusion attempts in the first 6 months of 2020 than in all of 2019. Now, why did this happen so much in the first quarter, in the first year, right? It doesn't, I've pretty much laid it out here for you. People were desperately seeking information on the pandemic during this time frame, right? They needed to know what causes you to get infected. What are the
Mhm.
resources available to me? How do I access personal protective equipment? Um, there was just there was a mad rush to access information because people were scared. And that's why we started to see such high rates of phishing emails that were themed as COVID-19. And I started with phishing because you can look at many different reports, but typically greater than 90% of cyber incidents begin with an email. And so there are some reports that say it's as high as 98%, some as 96%, but essentially greater than 90%. The majority of email or the majority of cyber attacks begin with that email. And so we have to take this seriously and we have to change our approach to not only educating ourselves, but securing our organizations. And I'll talk a little bit about that specifically here in a moment.
Yeah, I just want to add, we're seeing a lot of that locally as
Oh,
well. And when we do simulated phishing tests, like I think that most people think they wouldn't click on the link, and when we do simulated phishing tests, we always get clicks in
yeah.
response to them, and it's effective, and that's why there's so much of it. It's sad, but effective.
That's exactly right. And criminals also know that individuals and organizations are getting a little better at training their employees on email security. They're not great, but they're getting better.
Hmm.
So they're also leveraging text-based attacks more
Hmm.
as well, right? Because we're much more likely to click a link in a text message than we are in our email at times. And so
Hmm.
just thinking about the cyber criminals are going to continue evolving their tactics as technology evolves, as devices evolve, etc. So here's an example of an email that I wanted to share with you. Look at the subject line: staff member confirmed COVID-19 positive. Boy, does that not play on emotion of individuals? My gosh, who would not open that email? So in the body of the email, they say one of our team members have been infected by the coronavirus. View the secured document to get more details, blah, blah, blah. Regards, management. I love the regards
Hmm.
management. Just it's a funny way to tie that together or
Yeah.
in that email. But the malicious part of this email, right, is that attachment, that .html attachment that they want the employees to click on to get more information about the staff member and how to stay safe. And so um, this is just one example of thousands that have been captured by organizations like Cofense and Trend Micro and you name it, all these organizations that are monitoring and helping organizations be more secure. Um, they're just capturing these and sharing this with people because, you know, again, criminals are leveraging people's fear and their emotions to get them to click on a link. Here's another example, or two other examples of emails that have come through. Now, among the more persistent social engineering schemes have been deployed using these types of emails that exploit the financial programs that the federal government um, has issued throughout the pandemic to support individuals and small businesses. And every time there's a federal stimulus of some sort, whenever the federal government is sending out money, you better believe criminals are going to be right
Hmm.
there trying to take advantage of that opportunity and steal from businesses who are desperately seeking support to stay in business, or individuals who are desperately seeking um, funding to help them and their families get through a crisis. So these are two examples. And as you'll see let's look at the SBA example, the US Small Business Administration. Um, so the email came out, and if you hover over the link, view document now, you can see that that's not a legitimate SBA link. And they're not going to send you information like this. You'll also see in the Bank of America email the information. Look at the link in that email. That is insane. That's not a legitimate Bank of America email. But these are convincing, right? It is difficult to verify the legitimacy of some of these emails. So a piece of it is hovering over these links. A piece of it is also looking at the reply to addresses, the domains from the Bank of America and from the Small Business Administration to make sure that they're legitimate domains from those organizations. It takes a lot of work now. That's why I suggest if you receive an email from an entity requesting you to take an action, to click on a box or a link or to submit information, that you don't do it through the email. You do it through the actual account, such as your SBA account or through your bank account specifically. You don't click through or submit information in an email specifically. But these are just a few examples that were themed to take advantage of the current crisis that we're experiencing.
And Daniel, I just want to toss in one on the make sure you're going to the right account, because we heard of one incident in our community where somebody Googled Bank of America support. So the bad actors have even figured out how to get into those listings. So call the number on the back of the card.
Yes.
It's such a sad situation, but they just keep coming up with new tricks.
Yeah,
So make sure it's bankofamerica.com or
yeah, your bank statements, your credit cards, they have the support information on them.
yes.
That's a great point. And yeah, they are getting very clever with setting
Hmm.
up fake websites. Um, Here's an example, not of an email, but of a phone call. So this advisory was issued in August of this year by FBI and CISA, and the gist of it is that cyber criminals are calling teleworkers, and they were particularly targeting new teleworkers, new employees at organizations. How do they know someone is new at an organization? Well, typically we post on LinkedIn or any other website,
Hmm.
hey everybody, I just got a new job. I'm so happy about it. I work here. Here's my title. We give out all this information, and cyber criminals, through social engineering, of course, take that information, and what they're doing through this advisory is they are calling new employees, impersonating the IT or information security staff, and saying, "We want to help you set up your virtual private network." This is a very common support scam that's just specifically right now being used during the pandemic, but criminals use support scams all the time. A really common one is they might want to, they have a pop-up on your computer that says, we're Microsoft and we want to um, get into your computer and help you fix a problem, or we're your antivirus software provider and we want to help you get virus off your computer, or whatever it is, right? We see those service scams quite a bit. And this is just one that is popping up at a point where, or at a frequency at which the FBI and CISA had to issue a report. And so, of course, teaching your employees and educating yourselves about what information you submit to callers over the phone, right? It's not just email that you have to be suspicious about, but we often are tricked by savvy people over the phone who make very convincing conversation and get you to believe that they are someone who is there to support you. And
Hmm.
so again, that might be hanging up the phone and calling your trusted vendor or your trusted IT department or whoever it is directly. And so that's just one alert that came up. Another alert that came up I think it was this week, that I want to talk about, I don't have a slide for it, but I wanted to address it, is there was an alert by the same two federal agencies that came out that was about employees who are starting to leave home. They're teleworking, but they're leaving home and working from motels and hotels. Maybe the family's too much at home. Maybe they don't have a strong enough Wi-Fi connection. Who knows what's going on or what's causing this. But we're starting to see a lot of teleworkers move to hotels and motels to work. Now, one of the issues with that, the reason why was an alert is because a lot of these employees might be accessing the hotel or motel's public Wi-Fi or free Wi-Fi, or what they think is the free Wi-Fi. And of course, the guidance is with any publicly available internet connection. One, I encourage you to not connect to publicly available Wi-Fi, or two, if you do, that you do not access any sensitive accounts or complete any sensitive transactions over public Wi-Fi. One of the difficulties is that you don't know if that Wi-Fi is the legitimate Wi-Fi of that entity, of that cafe, of that library, airport, or hotel, or if it's one that a cyber criminal has created to look like it's the cafe, library, hotel, airport Wi-Fi to trick you into accessing their internet network or internet connection. So I would just encourage you, if you have policies and procedures within your business that put parameters around how employees access your company network through company issued devices or personal devices, that they're using a virtual private network or some sort of secure connection specifically. Now, another one that we're seeing with the pandemic where cyber criminals are taking advantage is employment scams, right? So employment rose higher in 3 months of COVID-19, in the first 3 months, than it did in 2 years of the Great Recession. Unemployment rose by 14 million from 6.2 to 20.5 from February to May. That's a massive amount of unemployed individuals. An FBI Internet Crimes Complaint Center found that losses not only were $3,000 per victim, but they saw that victim losses from employment scams totaled between January and May that exceeded $25 million. That's a lot of money being stolen from people who are seeking employment. But again, cyber criminals are bottom feeders. They're going to target anyone and everyone they can. So how do they trick individuals into submitting information? So what we're seeing is they will set up a fake job posting on public job boards and get people to submit information that way. Or they might create a posting that encourages you to pay for a position, right? If you have to pay for a job, then that you should not be applying for that job. You shouldn't pay to get a job. They're also setting up fake websites for job seekers, getting them to submit information. Think of all the information that we submit as job seekers on these job profiles. So I would always say, if you're looking for a job and you see a job listing, particularly on a public listing, like a job board site, if you see something that looks interesting, great. Now go to the actual employer's website and apply for that job. I'm sure Career Builder and all these other job board sites hate me for saying this, but I encourage you to not apply through those sites. Go to the legitimate website of the hiring organization and apply through there. That's just my tip, to make sure that the job is still available and that it's legitimate. And again, never paying for jobs. But anytime crisis hits and we see mass unemployment, we're always going to see rise in employment scams targeting these vulnerable populations. So I promise I'm going to get to the what can we do, but I wanted to give you just a thorough survey of some of the ways that criminals are taking advantage of us right now. So here's an example of text messages, right? So we're shopping online a lot more, right? And FedEx, I know I'm shopping online a lot more. I hardly ever shop online, but I look around the house, I'm like, oh, we need something there. Oh, this would help me be more efficient in doing whatever. So we're shopping online. And actually, UPS and FedEx have had to issue guidance because what we're seeing is a lot of text messages and emails that are being sent to people about about delivery services. So this one setting up your delivery preferences. But if you look at that link, that is definitely not a FedEx link, right? Or that there was an issue delivering your package. Click here. They're sending out. They're banking on people shopping more because they know they are, and so they're sending out mass text messages and mass emails with the hopes that people will click on the links, and they want you to submit, usually complete a form or submit information that quote unquote processes your claim or whatever, and they're capturing your information. And so, again, you can call FedEx or UPS or whoever your carrier is, but just being aware that criminals are taking advantage of you using these tactics. Another one is through text messages, is through Netflix and streaming services. They know we're also during this moment of crisis in particular, because we have no other way to entertain ourselves for the most part. We're watching TV more. And so this was an actual text message that I received. I don't even have a Netflix account. But again, they're casting a wide net, banking on people having Netflix accounts or whatever you have, so that you'll click on that link. Again, if you look at the link, that's not a legitimate Netflix link. And if you ever do receive a text message or an email saying there's an error on your financial account or payment processing, again, go directly to Netflix and sign into your account to verify the legitimacy of that. Because again, they know what we're doing. They know how we're entertaining ourselves. And so they want to take advantage of that.
One thing we've seen, Daniel, is sometimes the email might come in and then somebody gets it. The recipient then forwards it to somebody. Hey, I don't have time to deal with this. Can you deal with this for me?
Uh,
And then whammo, then that person gets hit because that person's received it from an authority at that point.
that is
So
such a great,
yeah,
great
so watch
point.
out. Don't forward them.
Don't forward them, or if someone does forward you information, don't
Yes.
take that,
Mhm.
as legitimate. I used to say stranger danger when it comes to email, but that's not true. I should slap my wrist for saying that, because actually, um, it's not stranger danger when it comes to email. You should be hyper vigilant and suspicious of any email that requests you to click on a link or to take an action, or any email or text message that preys on your emotion or that tries to raise your blood pressure in any way
Mhm.
whatsoever. So I have two more that I'm going to talk about. One is charity fraud. And so what I want to just mention here quickly is that cyber criminals are always there to take advantage of your generosity when it comes to um, moments of crisis. And so being hyper vigilant and always being sure that you are donating, if you are in the position to do so, to a legitimate cause, and do your research. Better Business Bureau has great resource for evaluating charities. There's something called Charity Navigator. A lot of good resources you can use to evaluate before donating your money, so that you make sure your generosity goes to the actual organization in need and not a cyber criminal. The only other piece of this that I want to mention before we get into the what's next is social unrest, right? We've seen social unrest across the country. And so here's an example of cyber criminals using the Black Lives Matter movement to influence individuals to download a malicious document. We've also seen, and this maybe wasn't necessarily malicious in as far as trying to have a data breach, but trying to disrupt services. We see Minneapolis was hit with a distributed denial of service attack amid social unrest during the killing of George Floyd. And so again, they're trying to disrupt services. They're trying to get people to download links and submit information in any way they can. Now, to wrap up all of this, you know, the we haven't seen the zombie apocalypse yet in 2020, but I say yet because the year ain't over, folks. We still have time for a whole lot of scary stuff.
Sadly.
But, jeez. But the CDC did this campaign a few years back. I think it was in 2011, because shockingly enough, the Centers for Disease Control, particularly their preparedness and response, found that people were not taking resiliency serious, or resiliency planning very seriously. So what they did was they created this zombie preparedness campaign to get people's attention. And what they wanted to get from this campaign is show people that it doesn't matter what type of crisis that we're experiencing, whether it's pandemic, flood, fire, zombies, um, that there are some basics that we can take to protect ourselves. And so now I already talked about email security, so I'm not, for sake of time, going to harp on that, because we shared some of the best practices that we had here. But one piece that I just want to address for business owners or operators is that in addition to teaching best practices throughout the employee's tenure at your organization, one piece that I always want to mention to every business is that you should be training employees on email security before giving them access to email. If email is the primary way that cyber criminals get into organizations and steal from you, why would you not train employees on email security before giving them access to this deadly technology for businesses?
Yes.
And so no matter how large or small you are, it is always critically important to set up the expectations of email security before handing over that access. And so that's my soapbox that I like to stand upon when it comes to email. It's just so important. And when it comes to employees, not only just entering the organization, but throughout the organization, as their time in the organization, you need to reinforce good security behaviors when it comes to email. And as they exit the organization, you need to be sure that you're removing access from to their email, so that they have no longer can access sensitive information and your email accounts. So I'm going to break the next section up into what can we do as consumers and what can we do as businesses. So for consumers, be aware, right? This is just being hyper vigilant that anytime a moment of crisis occurs, there's going to be a cyber criminal right there taking advantage of that opportunity. Again, not changing tactics necessarily. Usually that'll be email or text message or phone call, but they're changing their approach, their theme, and they're theming it as the current crisis. With lockdown your login, right? Being sure that you have strong authentication in place. What do I mean by that? Enabling long, strong, unique passphrases on all accounts. Length trumps complexity when you're setting up an email or when you're setting up a password. And making sure that you have two-factor authentication enabled on every device and account that offers it. Because if a criminal gets access to your password or passphrase, if you have two-factor authentication enabled, chances are they won't be able to use that password against you. Now, is anything a silver bullet? No, but that two-factor authentication helps you. It goes really far in helping criminals, or helping you keep criminals out of your sensitive accounts. So I would encourage you, after you leave this, if you have, your intellectual property stored somewhere, if you have an online bank account, you make sure that you enable two-factor authentication on all of them. Your social media accounts, usually I think all of them have two-factor authentication that you can use, but you have to go into your security settings and enable them. They usually don't make it too easy for you to do that. We talked about when in doubt, throw it out, right? If you get a suspicious email, throw it out and go to the actual legitimate website to verify. It's always better to just delete an email and pick up the phone and call someone to verify it than it is to actually click a link and expose your business to a threat. With keep a clean machine, what we mean here is that, one, making sure that all the software is updated on your devices and accounts, right? So don't click pause on that software update. Because software updates not only improve the performance of your accounts and your devices, but software updates also improve the security. And so another piece of this is, how are you empowering your employees or your family members to make sure that they update their devices and their accounts? With Own Your Online Presence, this one's just making sure that you are taking and share with your care. I'm going to put both of those together, right? Making sure that you are being mindful of what information you're putting out there in the world online. Every time you sign up for a new account, one, you want to configure your privacy and security settings. Or if you bring a new device into your home, configure the privacy and security settings. But also with owning your online presence, limiting how much information you put out into the world. For instance, if you create a social media profile and you set up your security settings, right? Your security questions, you have to ask yourself, are you giving out the answers to those security questions on your social media accounts, right? What's the first one that they always ask? What's your mother's maiden name? Where can you find your mother's maiden name? Where can you find your favorite pet's name? Usually on social media, pretty quickly. So limiting how much information you're sharing, or being mindful of how you're setting up those security settings. And then I already talked about getting savvy about Wi-Fi hotspots, right? Being sure that you are being careful about how you're connecting to the internet itself, and making sure that you're using a secure connection. Now, for businesses in particular, have a crisis plan in place. Think about this. What if your business lost access to your network? What would you do? Do you know what you would do? Do you have manual processes in place that you could resort to? Do you have data backups that you could turn to? Thinking through some of this. What if we lost access to this? What if we lost access to the front of our building, right? And employees could not access us due to a protest or due to the city tearing up the street, whatever it is. Having a crisis plan in place. Now, can you make a plan for every specific type of crisis? No, but you can have a plan in place for being resilient in times of uncertainty, when you lose access to particular parts of your business or particular types of employees. So knowing what to do, who to turn to in your community, who are those experts like Anne that you can turn to seek guidance and help. Because we know not every business is a cybersecurity business, right? You don't have cybersecurity professionals in-house. Create a technology toolkit for your employees. We saw a lot of issues when there was mass telework, right? A mass rush to telework. And employees were getting very creative with how they were doing their jobs, because they wanted to do their jobs, right? They wanted to be good employees and continue the business. And so they found any sort of technology, if the business didn't supply them with the toolkit, that they could use. And so we saw a lot of issues, of course, with privacy issues with Zoom and Zoom bombing and different sorts of vulnerabilities in meeting platforms, etc. So have a toolkit that your employees should be using. This is the VPN you should use. This is the virtual meeting platform you should use, right? Having a set of expectations for them. These are the types of devices that can connect to our network. So having these policies and procedures and these toolkits in place for them is really helpful. And again, people like your technology service providers or cybersecurity service providers, technology experts within your organization, they should help you craft that. Plan for an increase in cyber threats. I hope I demonstrated that throughout this presentation, right? That anytime there's a moment of crisis, you should plan for an increase in the amount of cyber threats that are themed for that crisis or themed with that crisis. Now, when it comes to evaluating your insurance coverage, we always want to make sure that you evaluate your insurance coverage based upon the types of disasters that could occur in your area, but also some of the other disasters like cybercrime that they are, location agnostic, right? They don't care where you are. So do you have cybersecurity coverage? So I'm not a cybersecurity insurance or an insurance expert at all, but I encourage you to talk to your broker, talk to your insurance agent to understand what is covered in your policy, in cybersecurity in particular, and what is not covered in your policy. And with adjusting your security priorities, making sure that you understand that employees are that they're stressed, and you also need to make sure that you're focusing on your business, right? On keeping your business in business and facing the current crisis. And so you want to make sure that you adjust your security priorities during a moment of crisis and not forget security, but make sure that you take it into account. Now, I talked about continuing to reinforce secure behaviors. Document lessons learned is pretty straightforward when it comes to responding to security incidents or any sort of business crisis. But the other two are really important. Make sure you're communicating to employees how to report incidents and suspicious activity, and having empathy with them to make sure that they're scared, they're confused, and so you as a business leader make sure that you have empathy with not only your employees, but your service providers as well, who are probably overwhelmed with tickets and requests for support when it comes to cybersecurity and telework guidance. And so have empathy when it comes to moments of crisis and understand that everyone is impacted in the community. And so have the perspective that we're all trying to do our best here. And so I'm going to end the deck with putting on my Miss Cleo hat and looking forward. As we move into the holiday season, the next storm that we're going to confront after we get through the election is going to be the holiday season for many. And so because more people are shopping online more, as I talked about earlier, we're going to see more focused, targeted attacks on both merchants and on consumers. And so just being hyper vigilant of the coming season with that. And so again, the ability to recover from or easily adapt to misfortune or change. Because we want you to stay in business. You want to stay in business and continue to service your customers and business partners. But it's how you plan for and respond to these moments of uncertainty that make the difference. And so, as I mentioned earlier, you can find a whole host of resources on our website at staysafeonline.org, and a lot of federal resources as well that you can access. And you're going to have access to this deck so that you can have the links, and I expose the entire link for you, so you know it's not malicious. You can link them, or you can hover over them if you want. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anne to wrap us up here.
All right, great. Thank you so much for joining us. We're at the top of the hour. Yes, this is, we're going to have the handouts available. If you just email me, and my email address is there, just say you want the handouts. We have a copy of the slides. The event is recorded. A couple other questions came in that we'll answer kind of one-on-one. And if anybody out there, we do a full technology, security-focused technology review. It's a $1,000 value. We're going to do that. Any small business out there for the month of October. So reach out to us for that. And thank you so much for joining. And I'm just looking at here. Oh, we are doing a electronics recycling event and hard drive shredding event. So shredding a hard drive when you're done with a computer, very important. That's next Wednesday at 11. So just contact us for details on that. And just looking through a couple of notes here on questions. But I think, Danielle, if you could put your information back, we'll follow up with any other questions. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Daniel, for a really engaging presentation. It's a lot to think about. And I highly recommend folks, all those resources on your website are amazing. And, make sure employees are seeing them. We put a lot of stuff on the Ekaru social media. They're great resources, and staying cyber aware. Do your part, be cyber smart, and it's an ongoing effort. So thank you, Daniel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.